Okay guys, well welcome back. It is now part 2 of this tutorial process. In this video, we're actually going to perform the restore to an unsigned version of iOS 12. Now to preface this video, it doesn't matter if you're on iOS 11, currently jailbroken, or if you're on iOS 12 currently, that being iOS 12 to 12.1.2. The only time it does matter is if you're on iOS 12.1.3 or above, you would have had to need to downgrade to a version of iOS that's either jailbroken, like iOS 11 to 11.4.1, or that has a nonce setter, and iOS 12 to 12.1.2 has just that. Well, let's get directly into this video. Let's start off by downloading all of the required files before we get into the restore process. Now, I'm going to be performing this on a Mac, but Future Restore right here is actually available for Windows as well. So since I'm on a Mac, I'm going to go ahead and download this, and all my files right now are downloading to the desktop. Secondly, if you're on iOS 12, you will need Cydia Impactor, as we will have to sideload this application right here. It's called Nonce Reboot, and it's going to let us set our nonce or set our generator on iOS 12 in order to use our blobs. So we'll go ahead and download that file as well, because right now on my iPhone, I am currently running iOS 12.1.1, and in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to downgrade back to iOS 12.1. Now, as a bit of background, Future Restore now works with devices that have Face ID, which is absolutely incredible. This is a brand new feature, and this is really what inspired this entire tutorial process to go off of. And then also, since I'm doing this tutorial process, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. iOS 12.1.1 and 12.1.2 are still currently being signed. So if you guys wanted to play around with this, right now would be a great time to do that. But in the near future, these two versions are not going to be signed any longer. And so this tutorial is going to serve as an overarching guide for users that want to upgrade from iOS 11 and or users that want to perform a fresh restore to either iOS 12.1.1 or 12.1.2 or just iOS 12 once all of these versions are unsigned. So most importantly, like we talked about in our last video, if you guys have yet to see that and if you have no idea what's going on, definitely check out that last video before continuing along on this one. Basically, the number one key thing here is you need to have had your blobs saved. You needed to save your blobs for iOS 12 or for whatever version you're either upgrading or downgrading to. And so I'm going to go ahead and retrieve my blobs by typing in my ECID right here and clicking Get My Blobs. And as you guys can see, I've been saving my blobs for quite some time now, all the way from iOS 11.2. So with these saved now, and since there is a nonce setter out for iOS 12, I'm currently running iOS 12 with my blob saved and all of this, I can now restore to iOS 12.0.1 and iOS 12.1 freely, even though they are no longer being signed by Apple. And in the near future, when iOS 12.1.1 and 12.1.2 are no longer being signed as well, I will still be able to restore to those. I guess about the only thing you guys really need to know in this video, if you didn't see last video, is the SCP for iOS 12.1.3 is compatible with all versions of iOS 12. That is the main thing that allows us to restore to these firmwares, even though they're no longer being signed. In the near future, the SCP could change and could no longer be compatible. I would definitely suggest before you attempt a restore to just ensure that the latest SCP is compatible with the version of iOS that you're trying to restore to. It doesn't matter, like I've been saying throughout this video, what version of iOS you're currently running. It only matters which version of iOS you're restoring to. If the SCP of the latest signed version of iOS, like 12.1.3, is not compatible with previous versions, then the restore process will fail even using this method. As of recording this video, the SCP is completely compatible, and that's what makes it so easy to do. Alright, so let's get directly into things. So let's go ahead and get out of these programs, and I'm just going to create a new folder on my desktop. Let's name it 12.1 Restore. And I'm going to go ahead and open up this folder and expand it a little bit, and we can go ahead and drag Future Restore into it. All right, so continuing along with this video, we have Future Restore downloaded, we have Umang's non-setter downloaded, you have Cydia Impactor downloaded, you also need the IPSW file of the version that you're going to restore it down to. In this case, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to downgrade to iOS 12.1 and or upgrade to iOS 12.1 if you're coming from iOS 11. So you can just click on this and click download. Again, this has to be for your specific iOS device here, and a great way to figure this out is just go identify my device. If you click on iPhone, it's going to say enter your model number, and if you're in the settings app, if you go to model and then tap right there, it will show the model. So mine's A1901, and then I can click find my device, and as you guys can see, it's an iPhone X, iPhone 10 GSM. You can go browse all iOS releases, and then we can select iOS 12.1 right here and begin to download this file in the background. But I've already downloaded this one. This one's the big one that's going to take some time. So I downloaded that in advance for this tutorial. And then the very last thing is we need our blobs. So we can go ahead and click download on the zip file right there. And then we have our blobs, and we can get rid of this zip file because it's already extracted it right here. I'm just going to rename this blobs to keep things organized. So going into our 12.1 restore file, we have future restore. We can drag our IPSW file being iOS 12.1 that we're restoring down to, or that just we're restoring to. So those are both going to be in there. And then the last thing we need is our iOS 12.1 blob. And so now we can just go to 12.1, no AP nonce. And if you guys have multiple folders or multiple files within here, I'll show you guys exactly which one to select. Typically, you want to select the latest saved version. Now, for whatever reason, I have iPhone X3, as you guys can see right here. That's not my model. I must have saved my blobs wrong at some point. The latest version with my correct model identifier right here is this blob. It's for iOS 12.1, iPhone X, and then this right here is the D221 AP. That's going to come into play a little bit later. So that is the blob we want right there, and I'm just going to put that all into the restore file as well. Okay, well, our future restore on our computer is all set. The only thing we need to do now is set our generator on iOS 12. So to do that, again, we need to use this nonce reboot application by Umang, and we need to sideload this onto our iPhone with Cydia Impactor. So we can just drag and drop, type in our Apple ID right there, and click OK. And then the only other thing is we need to go to appleid.apple.com and create an app-specific password. Just go through and verify your identity, because every Apple ID has two-factor authentication in now. So we can't use our Apple ID password. We have to generate an app-specific password. Just click create, put anything. You can put blobs, or just doesn't really matter at all. We just need this password right there. We can copy that and then paste it into Cydia Impactor right there. And it's going to go ahead and sideload nonce reboot for iOS 12.xx right there onto our phone. Again, this works for iOS 12 all the way up to 12.1.2. Now, if you guys are jailbroken on Uncover on iOS 11 to 11.4.1 and looking to upgrade to an unsigned version of iOS 12, you can actually go directly within the Uncover app and set your boot nonce right here. This is exactly the same thing that this nonce reboot application is doing for iOS 12, just on Uncover and on iOS 11. So the next thing we need is our boot nonce, or our generator. And where exactly do we get that? Well, we get that directly from our blob. If we go ahead and open it up within a text editor, I'm just going to go Apple F to search it. If we just type in gen and search for generator, it will say key, generator key, and then the string right below it. That is our generator right there, or our boot nonce. And that is exactly what you're going to enter in right here. And so I'm just going to pop up messages real fast and send it to myself. So I will be right back. I'm going to go back into this application and then just paste it in so I know it's correct. On iOS 12, you can just click return and say success. The generator has been set. Again, and then you can just exit out of the application. But again, on iOS 11 to 11.4.1 with Uncover, you just put that same key into your boot nonce and then click re-jailbreak, and it will set that appropriately. So now once you're back here, once your generator has been set on either iOS 11 or iOS 12 in this case, we are all good to actually perform the restore. The only other thing you need to do actually is on device, you need to go into settings into your iCloud account and then disable Find My iPhone at the bottom and then just enter your password. And so once Find My iPhone is off, once your generator has been set, now we are all good to perform the restore. So we can go ahead and open up the terminal application on Mac OS. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so everyone can see. Now it comes to the part where we're going to actually perform the restore. Now if you want to see what commands you can run with future restore, you can actually just drag and drop and enter it in, and this gives you a manuscript of exactly what commands you can enter. But I'm just going to exit out of that and open up a fresh window real fast and show you guys exactly what you need to do. Now, in most cases, we'll be able to just drag future restore onto the terminal window. You can type -T or just -T space. This is going to set our AP ticket, which is our blob, and then you can just drag and drop your blob. Now, in most cases, you can just type --latest SEP space --latest baseband and then space. And then you can select your IPSW file, drag and drop, and click enter. Now, what this is doing here is this is going to use the latest SEP and the latest baseband. And as of recording this video, that is from iOS 12.1.3, which, as I've been saying throughout this video, it's completely compatible with iOS 12.1 and iOS 12.0 all the way up to 12.1.3. They all have the same SEP. So technically, we could use this command. That's completely appropriate in this case. But in the near future, if iOS 12.2 becomes the latest iOS version out and the SEP is different, you may be required to actually manually specify the SEP and the baseband. So just to cover all of our bases, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do that. So instead of having Future Restore download the SEP and the baseband, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to find that and input it yourselves. So to do that, we're going to need just a few more files. I'm going to go back to Chrome and go back to ipsw.me. Now, in the future, let's say iOS 12.2 is out and we want to use the SEP from iOS 12.1.3. Now, this is only going to work if iOS 12.2 and iOS 12.3 are currently being signed, and that the SEP is different on those two, and you specifically want to use 12.1.3. Well, if you just right-click and click Copy Link Address right here, you can head over to Extract Me, and then you can choose URL right here and then paste in the download link URL. And it's going to do its thing real fast, and I'll be right back. Now what this is doing is it's manually extracting the IPSW file, and it will let you download only certain parts of it so you don't have to download the entire file. This saves a lot of time because IPSW files are really big. Plus, once you download the IPSW file, then you have to rename it as a zip, unzip that folder, and then grab these files. So in my opinion, this just makes it a little bit easier to grab the baseband and the SEP and the build manifest from IPSW files. So once it's all loaded, we're going to need a few things from here. So the first thing that we need is the SEP, and that's just directly under Firmware, All Flash, and then SEP. Now for the iPhone 10, there are two SEP versions. One is for the iPhone X3 being the global version, and one is for the iPhone X6 being the GSM version. And again, one way just to confirm you're downloading the right file is right within your blobs. It says D221AP. So we need the 221 IPM4, and that is our SEP. So we're going to go ahead and download that guy. The other file that we need is just under firmware, and it's all the way down here at the bottom. we need the baseband file for our device. Now, this one's a little bit more tricky from what I've gathered. Again, there are two baseband files here. This one right here, MAV17, whatever, is for the global version, the 10.3 iPhone 10, and then the ICE17 is for the GSM version. And again, I have the 10.6 GSM iPhone 10, so I need this baseband file right here. And click download. And then the very last thing we need is the build manifest, and that's again right in the base of the file right here. So if we just go firmware, it's just right here, right when you open up the IPSW file. So build manifest. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag my build manifest, my baseband firmware, and my SCP into Future Restore into my folder right here as well. All right, so this is how you set up this command as well. So again, we're going to start off by dragging Future Restore in, typing -T, and dragging our iOS 12.1 blob in right there. Then we're going to type in -S to specify our SCP. This is the SCP right here, the IM4P. Then we're going to type -B to specify our baseband firmware. We can drag that file in right after. And then we're going to type in -P and drag this build manifest in, and then type in -M space and type the build manifest in one more time. And then finally, if you guys want to debug it, you can type in -D. That's optional, but at the very end of this, you drag in your iOS 12.1 restore file right there. So that is the long version of this command. If you guys don't need to specify your SCP, your baseband firmware, or your build manifest, just use the latest SCP and latest baseband command. It's a lot simpler. You only need 3 files, and you don't need to get this extra stuff. But again, this is for the very advanced iPhone jailbreaker, and this is going to future-proof this tutorial a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and use this command. Again, both should work as of recording this video. So anyway, with all of this in place, if everything goes correctly once we hit enter, our device is then going to be restored down to iOS 12.1. Again, this is the same exact command, and same with the latest baseband, latest SCP. You can also use that as well if you're on iOS 11 to 11.4.1, so as long as you set your generator within Uncover. And again, the generator was found within the SHSH2 blob. So really the only difference between iOS 12 and iOS 11 is how you're setting your generator. Everything else in this tutorial is exactly the same, regardless of which firmware you're currently running. So here we go, guys, restoring to iOS 12.1. And again, just to confirm with everyone, iOS 12.1 is not being signed as of recording this video. So we're going to restore to it anyway by clicking enter. And there we have it, guys. The restoring has succeeded. Now our device is just rebooting, but as you guys will guess, we are now running iOS 12.1. And with the latest update to Future Restore, Face ID should work, but I'm going to confirm that for you guys in this video. So, wow, that was a giant tutorial process. It was definitely a lot harder than I thought to create this video, but I hope this is an awesome resource for you guys and provides some useful information for those curious about SHSH2 blobs and for those that potentially wanted to use them to update to iOS 12 from iOS 11, or for those who were curious about the nonce setter for iOS 12. Again, there really isn't a point or a need to downgrade from iOS 12.1.2 to 12.1, but there could be a need for some users to upgrade from iOS 12.0, from 12.0.1 to 12.1.2, which is sounding like that's going to be the latest version of iOS 12 that's going to be jailbroken in the near future. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to get this video out while iOS 12.1.1 and 12.1.2 was still being signed, just in case it messed up, and it definitely took me a couple tries to get this to work correctly. But just as a fair warning, do not try to downgrade to iOS 11, any version of iOS 11 that is, if you have a newer device. It technically is possible to downgrade to iOS 11.4.1 on the iPhone 5S and 6. But other than that, it is impossible to restore A9 through A12 devices down to iOS 11 entirely. So just avoid that. I tried it just to see what it would do, and it failed, and I had to restore manually through iTunes. But here we are, guys. We are at the restore screen. It has successfully completed. I'm just going to go ahead and real quickly set up the phone by connecting it to a Wi-Fi network. And here we go, guys. We're at the Face ID screen. Let's see if this works now. After using Future Restore, if I click Continue and get started, and there we have it, guys. Let's see. Let's see if I can do this with on film at all, but it looks like it's trying to gather some of my face. But pretty much, as you guys can see, Face ID is working correctly on iOS 12.1 now, so that seems to be working perfectly fine. Face ID is set up. I'm just going to use a 4-digit passcode, and then I'll finish this setup process and be right back. Well, here we are, guys, back on the home screen. If I go into the Settings app, go into General, and go into About, there we have it, iOS 12.1. We just restored to an unsigned version of iOS 12 using Future Restore. And as you guys can see, if I go to Face ID and passcode, Face ID is entirely working now using this method. So that is just incredible. That used to be broken. I remember I used Future Restore to update from iOS 11.1.2 to 11.3.1, but at the time, Face ID would break. It was not quite yet supported. So for multiple months of recording, I would get a prompt saying Face ID failed to load. Now, one side note I wanted to let you guys know, I downgraded to iOS 12.1 in this tutorial on purpose, because if you guys try to downgrade or upgrade to iOS 12.0 or 12.0.1, the restore will successfully complete, but Face ID will not work. And that was because at the time, Future Restore had not been updated yet to include Face ID support. So I don't know if it had something to do with how the blobs were saved or something along those lines. But if you guys try to restore to those firmwares with Future Restore, it will break Face ID. You have to update to iOS 12.1 or newer. Again, you still, as of recording this video, can upgrade to iOS 12.1.1 and 12.1.2 officially through iTunes, but in the near future, that won't be possible. But you still, if your blobs are saved, will be able to use this method. And as you guys can see, Face ID does work, so as long as you restore to iOS 12.1 or above. Anyway, guys, thank you for making it to the end of this video. It took a lot of work to actually put this tutorial together, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, definitely give it a huge thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest jailbreaking news. But until next time, guys, this is Tony, signing out.